I hope I'm in the right place to be seen by people that are at home. I'm Liz. I'm going to talk a bit about my lived experience of compulsive skin picking, which is what connects me to Bridget and her research. So I have had compulsive skin picking since I was a very young child. I didn't know it was a disorder. I didn't know other human beings did this. I certainly didn't think it was something I would be speaking about in adulthood, and something that has sort of propelled my life forward. Skin picking appears in all kinds of places on my body, my face, my back, my feet, my heels. It kind of moves around. It's very hard to control. In fact, I often don't even notice I'm doing it. So the behavior is incredibly unconscious and difficult to manage. It's a common disorder. 1 in 20 are thought to live with a body-focused repetitive behaviors. That includes the hair pulling disorder that Bridget was describing her experience. And in many cases, there are different treatment routes: habit reversal therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, some medication works. I didn't access any of those things and took a slightly different route. So I studied dance and theatre, and my journey with this disorder started on that course. We were told to look at pedestrian movement, and I realised very quickly that my skin picking was the first thing I did when I was stressed, when I was anxious. And it led to me kind of starting to look at movement patterns. I had no idea way back then that drawing is a huge movement pattern that actually has become the thing that my art practice is now about. But it started with movement. It started with dance and texture. I've always been very alert to texture in the world around me and my surface. My skin feels like this, even standing here talking to you. This is what the texture of my face feels like. And for a long time, I made artwork that was photographic. So there were about these big kind of changes to the surface of my body, and changing the places on my body I would pick the most: my chest, my back, my face. I had a nervous breakdown in 2015. I got very sick and I was off work for a year. Started having panic attacks, kind of big emotional kind of crisis happened. And during this point, I made these images, which kind of helped me get better. And my friend bought me a box of charcoal as a present. I remember laughing and saying, well, I know I get messy, but I don't really draw. I don't really know what I'm going to do with that. Thank you for this present. But I had no idea it was going to be the significant thing. This tiny piece of scruffy, messy carbon is what actually has changed my life. I got a job in North London. I had to commute on public transport, and I would pick every time I was on the tube, and started drawing on newspapers when I ran out of a sketchbook one day. So I'd pick up a newspaper on the carriage next to me, I'd draw over the top of the image really quickly, and people in the carriage would get nosy. Why are you drawing on the newspaper? I started having conversations with people, and I started giving them away to passengers. So this thing that started as a very personal recovery tool for me suddenly became this medium that's enabling me to speak to others. So this idea of connection and advocacy and giving them away as acts of kindness. I didn't need the drawings, I just needed to be doing them. Tiny piece of charcoal in my pocket. So on a busy day, I could give away 50 or 60 drawings. So that would be 50 or 60 conversations about skin picking and hair pulling and body focused repetitive behavior. And this led me on adventures from London to Singapore to San Francisco. So doing this thing, drawing on newspapers, kind of recycling the newspapers and giving them away around the world. So I had no idea that drawing was going to be such an important thing. And I'm asked to speak about these conditions because of the momentum of that project. And I started saying yes, because I didn't know who needed to hear that drawing could be a recovery tool for this condition. So it led to, just before COVID, I'd given away about 15,000 free drawings and did a TED talk, which I still get information from. So the momentum of this tiny thing in my pocket, this bit of charcoal, has given me enormous recovery and repair. I guess I hadn't really thought of the impact of that. But as Bridget said, charcoal is a complicated medium, right? It's this messy material in one respect. It does good things, but it's also got a complicated history. For someone who draws with it every day, I'm aware of its kind of history, but I'm also fascinated by what can be done with it. And I am working now and living by the sea. So I have left London, left the city, and I'm now in the environment that we've been talking about and hearing from Jenny. Living by the coast makes me very alert to the environment. I'm suddenly sort of thrown into all the drama of the water and all the complications of that environment. So I live in Whitstable in Kent, and as with so many places in the country, pollution is a huge problem where we live, and it's not just this space that helps my mental health, it's a space that gets impacted by human behaviour. And I've been drawing the sea for the last 3.5 years. It's become this obsession to kind of capture what is right there on my doorstep. But also there's a hugely emotional connection to this for me. This thing is being damaged, the sea and the environment. Sometimes we can't swim, the beach is closed because there's so much pollution. We have an activism group in Whitstable that are trying to raise awareness for this and huge kind of changes to that environment. But it continues to be this huge pull. So I'm constantly kind of working with that environment. There's a mirror here for me of what's happening in that space, but also emotionally and in terms of my mental health, drawing serves a huge purpose, and I'm drawing every day to manage this condition. So the things are totally connected. I do a lot of community work around charcoal too. So drawing with charcoal is a great way in. If people haven't drawn for a long time, or you know, I work with all ages, so it's quite an immediate thing to draw with. We're hopefully going to have that experience this afternoon. It's really responsive to touch, and from this connection to my condition and to the disorder, the tactility of charcoal is powerful. As soon as it's on my hands, I don't touch my face, I don't touch my body because my hands are messy. So it's like a barrier that gives me that sort of recovery from the skin picking, keeps me kind of occupied. And texture forms a huge part of that process of drawing. So we're going to experience that a bit today. Drawing helps me navigate my life. I'm dealing with grief in my life at the moment, grief on many levels. And these recent drawings that are kind of taking over my space are about that feeling of it all just sweeping in. So I'm trying to kind of navigate those emotional sort of tapestries of that feeling, as well as be quite immersed in the process of making. Drawing for me is a very physical, repetitive process. There's a real kind of flow. It's a great kind of thing to talk about water as well, right? But there's a great feeling of flow that happens in this disorder too. When skin picking is very present, I lose sense of time. When I'm drawing, I lose sense of time. And the two things feel like they have a conversation together. So drawing is a way to kind of intervene, but it's also to have the dialogue with what the condition feels like. I'm just going to finish with this slide. This is the position I pick my body in, these very familiar tensed position of my fingers. When I'm picking at my skin, that's the position, but to turn my hand around and to draw on the paper is absolutely a dialogue for me with what the condition does, but it's pushing it out of the body into something expressive. So for me, there is this whole kind of push forward into trying to do something creative with something that caused me such difficulty.